Hi guys. I am on 168. Okay. This chapter is called The Desk. Okay. Again, I'm on 168. Nancy O'Malley, the Alameda County District Attorney, worked at a weighty, dark wood desk that was once used by Earl Warren, the U.S. Supreme Court Justice, whose court ruled that public school segregation was unconstitutional in the landmark 1954 decision Brown versus Board of Education. A round faced blonde with a brisk, no sense manner, she was known as a crusader for the rights of women and children. Her prosecutorial priorities included sex trafficking, domestic violence, and child abuse. She had a reputation as tough but generally fair. Her office had one of the lowest direct file rates in the state. But in this particular case, O'Malley had no qualms about prosecuting Richard as an adult. The crime is very, very, very serious, she explained, but for some good Samaritans, Sasha could very well be dead. He lit Sasha's skirt on fire on the bus in the middle of the day, and that's very disturbing behavior. If the defendant doesn't change and get rehabilitated, he's a very serious person in our society and a real threat to anyone. A threat, she argued, because hate crimes are discrimination just as segregation was. And as the occupant of Earl Warren's desk, she was determined to fight discrimination wherever she found it. We have a long history in this country, of people and cultures who have been treated badly because of their race, their gender, their religion, and all the protected classes that we've identified under the law, she explained. So, if someone commits a heinous crime against someone because they are a member of a protected class, that is very purposeful discrimination. It's important to show that this is the kind of behavior that will never be tolerated. Until the mid-1980s, the law made no distinction between crimes motivated by bigotry and crimes motivated by money, passion, or boredom. Murder was murder. Vandalism was vandalism. The term hate crime was coined in response to what was described at the time as an epidemic of neo-Nazi and skinhead violence, although in retrospect it's unclear whether any such epidemic existed. Since then, the number of bias-motivated prosecutions has steadily gone down. In California, a state with close to 39 million people, hate crime prosecutions have fallen 48% since 2003, with just 158 bias crimes filed for prosecution in 2012. Since bias crimes are vastly underreported, however, the true number is undoubtedly higher than the statistics indicate. But despite how infrequently they're prosecuted, high-profile hate crimes offer a powerful narrative, one that has been important in fighting prejudice. A hate crime is bias boiled down to its most, turn the page, vile essence. Even someone who isn't sure what they think about hiring people who are black, gay, or transgender can feel the essential wrongness of hurting someone because they are black, gay, or transgender. By revealing the raw ugliness at the heart of prejudice, high-profile hate crime prosecutions have helped build empathy for people on the margins. Perhaps the most high-profile hate crime prosecution in Alameda County history were against 4 men who murdered a transgender teenager named Gwen Araharo in 2002 after discovering her biological sex. In the wake of that case, California state legislature passed the Gwen Araharo Justice for the Victims Act, which allows injuries to be instructed before they begin deliberations that should not allow themselves to be influenced by bias against gender identity of the victims, defendant, or witnesses. Yet, the majority of hate crime offenders don't fit the stereotype for the squinting, bristle-headed loner with a swastika tattoo or a Confederate flag t-shirt. Researchers estimate that fewer than 5% are members of the organized hate group. Most are young males, either in their teens or early 20s, acting in a group, often immediately after school. In a study of Boston hate crime prosecutions in the early 1990s, 2/3 of the offenders were categorized as thrill-seeking. That is, they were groups of young people looking for some fun at the expense of someone they regarded as lower status. The authors of the study found that many of these offenders weren't particularly biased towards their victims, but were following the lead of a more biased peer. Many hate crimes, according to Phyllis B. Gerstenfield, a criminal justice prosecutor in California State University, a criminal justice professor at California State University, Stanislaus, don't have as much to do with the victim as they do with the offender and their own insecurities, which of course is a lot of what's going on with adolescents in general. I'm at the top of page 171. Maybe that is why Nancy O'Malley received a surprising letter in November 2013. The letter was from two groups that might have been expected to support O'Malley's decision to charge Richard as an adult: the National Center for Lesbian Rights and the Transgender Law Center. When a juvenile impulsivity and poor judgment produce dire consequences, it does not make sense to craft a response intended for adults, they said in a letter that was also sent on behalf of the American Civil Liberties Union of Northern California. Rather, these are very circumstances under which it is important to remember that children are different from adults. The letter concluded, "We firmly believe that you can demonstrate your office's commitment to protecting the victims of hate crimes without imposing adult sanctions on juvenile offenders." Okay, so this chapter was kind of a more difficult one to understand. So the most important things I need you to get out of this is the person who is trying to make Richard go to jail for what he did. This is called the prosecutor, okay? The prosecutor's name is Nancy O'Malley, okay? She's the one who wants to charge Richard as an adult, okay? But what we just got in these last two paragraphs is that there are multiple groups who are kind of asking Nancy not to try him as an adult because he was peer pressured by his friends, and he didn't necessarily do it out of hate. He just wanted to kind of impress his friends and goof off. Okay, so really what we need to get out of this is that Nancy O'Malley is trying to make Richard go to jail, and there are some people who really agree with her and think that he should go to jail, but also some really big organizations that are asking her to reconsider. Okay, so again, we'll have to keep reading to see what happens to Richard.